It is condemnable to acquire power through the barrel of the gun. But it is important to point out that the people of Niger have somewhat celebrated the coup. What led to the coup in Niger? The coup plotters have blamed rising insecurity and lack of economic growth. They stated that the intervention was necessary to avoid the gradual and inevitable demise of the country. So, on one hand, you have the ECOWAS standing on the principles of the rule of law to defend the democratic establishment in Niger. While on the other hand, you have the Nigerian military arguing that the democratic system has failed and that it had become a matter of necessity to do away with the system, invoking the equitable principles of necessity and self-preservation. Interesting conundrum. So while the ECOWAS would claim that the ousted democratic government got their legitimacy through an election, the military government will be claiming that even the election itself is not legitimate because it is part of a failed system, and that the acceptance shown by the Nigerian people who were dancing on the street is the source of the legitimacy of their government. You see, if a government has failed to protect the life and properties of the people, that government has failed in the most fundamental aspect of governance. No two ways about it. Okay? The Sahel, the vast arid expanse south of the Sahara Desert, faces growing violence from Islamic extremists, which in turn has caused people to turn against the elected government. Okay? Niger and Nigeria, among other West African countries, have been plagued by Boko Haram terrorists for close to 2 decades now. Internally in Nigeria, we have what they call bandits, who are also kidnappers. Okay? In saner climates, through town hall meetings and their likes, okay, the people will inform the legislative representatives that they have lost faith in the government. The National Assembly will issue a vote of no confidence, and then the government will be removed from power. But in this part of the world, our political elite have mastered the art of bypassing the checks of democracy. Our votes don't count during elections, and it's almost impossible to get a vote of no confidence because the members of the National Assembly will always remain loyal to their selfish interests. Okay? You come out to protest, you send security agents to massacre unarmed protesters. So I ask you, what checks do the people have against this failed democratic system? And by the way, what is the interest of the West anyway? How much assistance do they offer to help us improve the efficiency of our and functionality of our democracy? How come the military backing they didn't give us, talking about the West African region now, to fight against the insurgents and terrorists, would now be made available to ECOWAS to invade Niger? How many times will something happen to us before we learn our lesson? Look at what they did to Libya not quite long ago. Then again, why is Niger being treated differently? They are not the only West African country with a military regime. There is Mali, there is Burkina Faso, there is Chad, there is Sudan. Could it be that the reason why they are being treated differently is because this coup is happening at a time when the president of the ECOWAS is struggling to defend the legitimacy of his own government in his country, Nigeria? And perhaps he's trying to show force and strength to discourage anything similar from happening in his country. He has every right to panic, but I think his reactions are misdirected. You see, this time should be sort of a sober reflection for other West African countries who still have democratic governments to declare a state of emergency on the decadence of security and economy, and also deal decisively with the issues of corruption in their various countries. Nigeria, of course, being the country in the most dire need. It is definitely not a time to make further mistakes in going to war and plunging the region into further inconsistencies and uncertainties. This is what I propose, if the coup persists. 1. ECOWAS must go to the negotiating table with the military governments of Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso, and avoid using military might or too stringent economic sanctions. There are signs that these countries with military head of states would team up to resist the military invasion of any of them, Niger being the threatened one, and the consequences will be far too reaching. It will take the region the next 100 years plus to attenuate. Number two, a committee should be set up to evaluate the concerns of these military regimes, and the allegations they have against the government officials of the former democratic government must be properly prosecuted. It is more reasonable to let the people who are responsible for the breakdown of the government pay for the corruption that led to the failure of the system in the first place. Of course, the government officials who are found complicit after investigations. Okay. Number three, a 2-year plan should then be developed, at the end of which the military regime would oversee a general election which would return power to a more efficient and a more accountable democratic government. With this method, one simple bullet will not be fired in the region, and the region will be stronger. It is important to note that a good government is not built on fear and suppression. Rather, one is built on acceptance and understanding. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, I beg you, resist the admonitions of the West to go to war against the people of Niger. Nothing good, absolutely nothing good, comes out of it. Rugged Rabbi, signing out.